Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to another video. Today I am in South Africa. As you can see, I am wearing short sleeves and I am not in the cold of Manchester. But while I'm here in South Africa, I figured it would make sense for me to speak about the things that would actually make me move back to South Africa from Manchester. If you watch my previous video, you'll know that I have moved to the UK twice in my lifetime. First, it was my initial move, and secondly, you'll have to watch that video to find out what happened there. But essentially, I've made the decision twice to live in the UK, and there must be a very strong reason for that. But in this video, I'm going to cover the reasons or the things that would make me move back to South Africa. Before we get into that, if you're new, hello, welcome. On this channel, I do vlogs about life in Manchester. I share my experiences about my life and day-to-day activities, and I'm also passionate about nutrition, health, wellness, and so I incorporate all of that within this channel. So if you like that vibe, stick around and subscribe. I'm on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so would really appreciate it if you could stick around and subscribe. Let's get into those things. I'm only here to visit, and it's very glaring to me the things that would actually make me consider moving back to South Africa. The first thing that would make me move back is obviously my family and missing out on experiences. So my family still stays here. My parents both still live here. My two sisters, my cousin, my gran, everybody pretty much stays here. And I come from a very close-knit family, and so being away from them is actually quite difficult. And I think when I'm in the day-to-day life of living my life and being busy with the things that I do in Manchester, I don't really pay attention to it. But at certain points, I'm very conscious of the fact that by choosing to live in Manchester, I'm actually foregoing events and experiences that I'll never be able to get back with my family. My parents are aging, and that is something that I can't get away from. And so it's quite heavy on me, the fact that I'm not spending a lot of time with them. I call them quite frequently, and I try to keep in contact as much as I can. But obviously, if you're not living in a place, it's quite difficult to keep up with the day-to-day things. So yeah, I'm missing out on that. I'm missing out on birthdays, on weddings, on funerals, on just doing life with the people that I love the most. And so that is probably one of the biggest things that would make me consider moving back. The second thing would probably be quality of life. Now, I'm a professional. I am an accountant by profession. And sometimes when I look at my peers, right, who are doing the same thing that I am, I sometimes just think, I wonder how far I'd be if I was still here in South Africa. The level of progression within my career, the lifestyle that I'd be living would be very, very different. Now, obviously, life in Manchester is quite different from life in South Africa, but I'd probably live quite a comfortable life, just judging from the quality of life that my peers seem to have. And this is a comparison, but it's not necessarily like a bad comparison. It's more just to say, if I actually decided to stay in South Africa, this is what I'm foregoing. And if I wanted soft life and I wanted to come back and live a very comfortable life with a big garden and a big house and yeah, just like a comfortable life, South Africa would be where I'd get it. Because in the UK, yeah, it's quite tough to get those things. And even the way the houses are built, the houses are quite small just in general in comparison, and obviously that's because of a number of factors. And so I think if I was to look at just that component alone, I'd probably just jump on the next plane and just be like, I'm moving my life back here. But yeah, I don't think I'm too fussed about that component of it right now. The sense of community, the social life, the work-life balance, I think that if I were to move back to South Africa, my work-life balance would probably improve drastically. In the UK, I work quite long hours. If I'm being realistic, I work a large portion of my life, and I'm hoping that's going to change in the future. But right now, this is kind of like what I need to be doing, and I think that if I were to move back here, my quality of life would improve because my work-life balance would improve. And if you watch my previous video, I mentioned a story about how I moved back to South Africa and I moved to the UK again. And during that interim period, while I was waiting to move back, I actually worked in finance in South Africa. And that role that I was doing was very, very comfortable. Like, it was, yeah, I had a life outside of work. And I think that sometimes I just don't have that as much as I'd like to with my life in the UK. And yeah, that's probably like a really big one, because obviously life is going past and years are going past, and if you work majority of your life, you're not getting the full experience of what life is about, I think, at least. The third component, which I think we often forego until we are a bit older, is the one of relationships. Now, again, I'm going to say in the Western world, because I kind of want to draw a distinction between life in South Africa and life in the UK or life in Manchester, right? I think that there is a huge reliance on social media and internet dating to find companionship and to find partnership. And if you're not someone who's into internet dating, or you're not kind of like, like keen on it, it becomes quite tricky, because if you are trying to navigate like the dating space or trying to get into a meaningful relationship, it gets really, really tricky. Versus in South Africa, and I think this is common to a lot of other African countries, because people are so community oriented and free and liberal, people approach you quite a lot. And obviously that doesn't mean like it's all quality relationships and it's all good people, but your chances of getting into a quality relationship are higher in South Africa than they would be in the UK, at least in my experience, right? Comment down below if you've had a slightly different experience, and let me know your thoughts on this. But I just think that, like, if you are someone who is not really keen on internet dating, the dating scene or the finding partnership scene in the UK can be really, really tricky to navigate. And obviously, if you are trying to have children and you're trying to start a family, that puts pressure on what you're choosing. By not choosing to live in South Africa, you're obviously then by default choosing the way of dating or navigating the dating scene in the UK. So yeah, I think that's probably another thing that I am more aware of now that I'm older, is that, like, yeah, the dating scene is a bit difficult in the UK and in Manchester. The fourth one, I think, is community. And I emphasize on this a lot on this channel, because I think that it is the key to integrating into any community that you go into. Finding a community of people that you can rely on and that you can call your friends or your acquaintances is essential in thriving, right? Wherever you are. And when I come to South Africa, I find that, again, similar to the dating thing, it's very, very easy to find people who are similar to you, to find social circles. People are doing things. It's easier to just kind of navigate and find close-knit communities and people that you can rely on. And I miss that sometimes. I am quite lucky that I have eventually gotten that, but I think a large portion of my life in the UK has been spent quite in isolation and just kind of navigating day-to-day life alone. And it's been a learning experience and something that I hopefully will be able to share more knowledge on, so that less people have to go through that, because I think it's really, really, really essential to get yourself integrated into a community if you're going to be able to thrive. And I do find that living in the UK, living in Manchester, it's really difficult to find communities and people who are like you, because people are just not that sociable or not that easy to get used to. The fifth component, and I think I've got it right, I think I've mentioned 4 already. So the fifth one would be my culture and my language. So I am a Zulu native speaker. I speak Zulu, that's my home language, and it's something that I value and that I pride myself in. And I think that by living in Manchester, by living in the UK, it makes it really, really difficult to hang on to my language. I am quite lucky that I have people that I can still speak my language to on a day-to-day, and I try and speak my language quite a lot. But I think that over the years, if I decide to continue staying in Manchester, my language and vocabulary and pronunciation is gonna deteriorate, and I just hate that I am going to have to lose that part of me. Another key thing is that I would hope that one day when I have kids, they're able to speak my mother language, and that is something that I would love to be able to pass on. And if my Zulu is deteriorating, it means that it'll be even more difficult for them to speak it. It also means that I'll have to be exceptionally intentional about teaching them the language and setting aside time to teach them the language. And so that's one of the things that I kind of have to forego by choosing to live in the UK and in Manchester. And yeah, that kind of saddens me. Along with language is culture and the way of life and the way of doing things. And it's if you're staying in a country that is different from the one that you were born in, you have to assimilate, and things change, the way that you do things, and even unconsciously it can happen that you start losing your core self in the environment, just because a person changes based on the environment that they're in. And yeah, I just think that it just means that I am choosing to forego the part of me that is very South African and African and Zulu and all the things that I pride myself in. So that is one of the setbacks of staying in a Western country. And last but not least is definitely the vibes and the friendliness. People are so friendly. Like it confuses me sometimes when I get to the airport and like people greet, like you have to greet when you see the next person. It's just a thing. Like, hi, how are you doing? And they'll just like start chatting to you like you've known each other for a while. If you live in the smaller cities, like I am from a city called Durban, which is on the coast, you find people are much nicer. I know in Johannesburg people say that things are a bit dangerous, but in Durban, and even if you go on the outer parts like in Pietermaritzburg, people are so friendly and trustworthy. Like you can almost trust people. Obviously you don't trust everyone, but people will stop and help you. Like if you're carrying too many bags, they'll carry the bags with you. If you are struggling with something, they'll be like, how can we help you? It'll become a problem of everyone around you to solve whatever it is that you are facing trouble with. And you are also kind of expected to do the same, and by default of just being in the environment. And I think that authenticity of the country is something that I cannot replicate in Manchester, because it's a different place. Like people are living separate lives. It's just a different environment altogether. And last but not least, I know I said last already, is the weather. I think I underestimated the impact that winter can have on your mental health, on your energy levels, on the way that you feel and think, and obviously your productivity and your human experience. And I hate to make it sound dramatic, but winter makes up a large part of the year in Manchester at least. And if you're just going to be in the dark for a really long period of time without leaving the country, it takes a toll on your mental health, and you can just find yourself deteriorating without realizing that it actually is just the sun that you're missing. I have actually realized that since I've been back in the past couple of days, just that like my mental health seems to be so much better and in a better space because there's sunlight. Like literally nothing else has changed. It's just the fact that I am in sun, there's heat, there is warmth, and yeah, I don't take that for granted. And that is probably the last thing that I will mention. Those are the things that I think would probably make me consider moving back to South Africa. Let me know below if you are living in the UK right now, whether you're living anywhere in the UK or specifically in Manchester. What would make you move back to your home country if you are from a different country? Because I think it's a conversation worth having and kind of feeds into the bigger picture of like what are your intentions about staying in the country that you are that you have decided to live in. So yeah, that is the end of this video. I'm going to do a separate video around the flip side of that, of the things that would make me stay in the UK and not move back to South Africa. So stay tuned for that, and make sure to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who might find it useful. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.